What's up, guys, and welcome back to the crazy life of Jake and Wife today. Today, we are going to talk about some wild things. You may change your opinion on who I am.
Buckle up.
But we're going to be talking about aliens and giants and
Scriptures,
the Old Testament and the book of Enoch and a couple other books that I like to read. And how does that affect our lives? And what do you believe? So a couple things on the news that I saw, actually, when I went to the furniture show in Vegas in August, beginning of August, end of July.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
I was in Vegas and I saw on the news, which is crazy because this is totally something I love, something called 3I Atlas, which they are talking about some spaceship or some sort of craft that is in our solar system on a trajectory toward Earth. And they call it 3I Atlas because it's the third interstellar object which we have had in our space. And they named it Atlas. Now, what's interesting is just last week, they were talking about how its trajectory is going to go around the sun. But now it has physically changed its course and is now kind of headed perfectly straight toward Earth. And comets can't do that. And so that gets me thinking about so many things and how many people think, let's use the word alien or interstellar or extraterrestrial exist. Do they exist? Do they not exist? And a couple.
First off, I think we can just confirm because the governments of the world have confirmed that there are extraterrestrials, and so
yes,
people who still say that they don't believe it, like it's wild to me because when we literally have. When you finally have the government come out and tell the truth about something, then and you don't and you choose not to believe it, that's just sticking your head in the sand. But they have reverse reverse engineered crafts. So they've basically the government has crafts that they have taken apart to figure out how they were built and put together, and then reverse engineered them and used them for.
But what's funny though
creating,
is only some people see this. Like some people are still going to think we're full of crap. Like how that never happened. They have admitted it. We
got different algorithms.
It's always just buried. But thinking about these types of things, there's so many unique things in the world right now. I read a book from a guy called Chris, from a man. His name is Chris Bledsoe. It's called UFO of God. Very interesting read. I recommend listening to it. Get your thoughts on it. I'm going to give a quick overview though.
Before you do that,
yes.
I want to kind of give it's not a disclaimer, but let's just go into this with an open mind. We have had some experiences recently, even with our niece at school, and teachers being very dismissive of thoughts and things like that. When you look at science over the hundreds of years that we've been creating civilization. When you look at science, the whole point of science and the scientific method is to have a question, find a way to answer it. And you have most of the things that we believe, most of the things that we run off of are theory still. They are still a question that we think we've answered, but we are not totally sure because we don't have that technological advantage yet. And so I think it's important to go into these things with an open mind.
Well,
we're not trying to convince, and we're not trying to.
I'm going to call this teacher out for the fact that she told my niece, because my niece referenced something, I won't bring up what it was, but she said, well, it's found in the Bible. And she said, well, the Bible's false. The second that teacher said that, just discredited every other word she could ever say to me, especially in the community we live in. We live in an extremely religious community around here. And so for a teacher, which must vote one direction, said that the Bible is false and isn't real, so you shouldn't believe that anyway. I don't care for this teacher. We will not get into that.
I just wanted to give keep an open mind. Let yourself. We're not here to convince anybody of anything.
A kid.
Yeah,
she's 10 years old.
Yeah, but we're not here to convince anybody of anything. We just want to share some things that might bring about some thinking, some thoughts.
Okay, let's jump into it because we don't have tons of time.
All right,
UFO of God, Chris Bledsoe. This guy, I'm going to give just a quick overview of it. There's so much detail in the actual book, so I recommend reading the book. And then read the book with the Spirit, though, because you need to understand what could be true or what is of God, what is not of God in these scenarios. So this guy, though, his entire life, I guess not his entire life, he grew up with a pretty cool life, very wealthy, very good man, but had some UFO experiences And from those experiences, almost lost everything in his life because people thought he was crazy. His entire community shunned him. And he was like, no, I've had these UFO encounters, and specifically a lady who has appeared to him, who appeared extremely beautiful, very powerful. And the lady herself said that she had been known throughout our history, such as Ishtar and Asherah, which were goddesses back in the old day. So I have my own opinion on if she's good or bad. But because there's only one God that we should worship. But nonetheless, she talked to him, and again, Chris Bledsoe's family and community, mostly community, was kind of shunned him as an outcast. And finally, it's interesting, the government showed up to his home and said, Chris, we have known about these crafts and these experiences for years, and we've been trying to get in contact with this, but we can't. But for some reason,
you can.
You can. And
this is NASA coming to him.
Correct. Mm-hmm. And then NASA finally went to the community and said, look, the things Chris is saying, they are real. They are happening.
So you got to leave him alone.
So leave him alone. He's not lying, which is wild. And then recruited him to come start helping
and now he works in government.
Well, he works in a few different things, but this is what's interesting about it. I want to go into this really quick. So this lady who appears to him appears and talks about how she was known in old times of all these ancient goddesses and Marian apparitions. That's been her for the most part, which is interesting that certain sects in the world worship this Marian apparition. Anyway, the thing with Chris Bledsoe, what happened is when he had this very first encounter with her, he got a terrible thing of rheumatoid arthritis, and so bad at the point he couldn't walk, move, anything like that. And when NASA finally saw him, said, when did this happen? And he gave him a date the first time, and they said, for some reason around year 12, it will magically just go away. It's where it's normal arthritis, it won't. But because of it happened through this encounter, it will go away. Year 12 comes around. He's so bad. He's wheelchair. He can't do anything. It's terrible for him. Year 12 goes around, miraculously gone. No side effect, no anything. Has it again. And every year on Easter or on Christmas, this lady, who he calls Lady Wisdom, appears to him. And she has given him things in the future on what will happen. And every time something has happened, I won't give all the detail. You should read the book. But every time she has referenced something that would happen in the future, it has happened. Mm-hmm. Now, what's interesting about this is she said that around Easter of 2026, the world will enter an age of the divine feminine. I mean, the divine feminine. And she said that she will then be back to her glory and the way she was in old days, such as Ishtar and Asherah. Interesting to look forward. The other crazy thing about this, and this is why the government uses Chris Bledsoe, she gave him power to heal. Now, there's documented cases of him being in a place where this wealthy family had a son who had an incurable sickness and was going to die. And they said, we want you to heal. And he's like, I don't know how to do it, but she said I could. And he said when he walked up to him, he felt this energy, almost like electricity. And he just touched him, and kid was miraculously healed. Interesting. Now, the reason I bring this up, I'm a very, very Christian man. And how can we correlate extraterrestrials or aliens?
Accommodate that thought with religion?
With religion. Because I'm afraid if something like this happens, how many people will lose their faith? It talks about it all over in the scriptures. I mean, everywhere. Daniel talks about it very specifically. That
God is not a magician. He's a scientist. So we have to make these things fit together.
How can they fit, but then recognize what is of God's power, what is not of God's power, right? Just like I've brought up many times before, magicians of Egypt mimicked the power that Moses threw his staff on the ground, became snakes. So did they. Mm-hmm. How can we recognize what's true and what is false? What is of God, what is not of God? Anyway, I wanted to bring up a couple of things that I love. So in Genesis, it talks about a man named Enoch or Enoch. A lot of people you'll hear his name, Enoch. I'm going to say Enoch for now because that's how I've heard it my whole life. It mentions in Genesis how God basically took Enoch, and Enoch walked with God, and it doesn't reference him dying. We get one verse. I think it's chapter 4, verse 1. I will not for sure quote me on that, but I think it's in chapter 4 in Genesis. And then Jude talks about it, talks about mostly the watchers, or he references angels that come down and defile themselves with women. that's all we get from basically this dude in Enoch. So then I wanted to understand this more. And if you've heard of it, there is a book called the Book of Enoch. A little background on this book, though. This book has been around forever. In fact, Pharisees understood the Book of Enoch very well. The apostles from the New Testament and Old Testament understood the Book of Enoch. In fact, Matthew quotes an exact verse from the Book of Enoch in Matthew's book, which you wouldn't know that
unless you'd read both.
Unless you had read the Book of Enoch. So a little background about the Book of Enoch. It's been around a long time, and then it eventually tried to be destroyed by Nicene Creed, other things that took a lot of books out of Scripture. And I was like, what is this book? Where does it come from? What's the purpose of it? They tried to take it out, in my opinion, because it just makes God really impressively nice instead of angry, and it gives a whole big background to fill in missing notes that we get from the Bible scriptures. But a little more history. What happens in 1890 is when we actually found it again in an Ethiopic tribe, which is unique, and it was written in some Ethiopian language, which they think came from like Aramaic before then. And then we didn't actually get it translated into English till 1930. So not long ago.
It's translated from Ethiopian to German, and then German to English.
So not tremendously long ago, and I'm hoping the copy that I have is pretty accurate because it hasn't been translated a ton of times. There's things in the Book of Enoch, though, that are interesting. I'll give a background about what it talks about. The Book of Enoch has the Book of Parables, the Book of Jubilees, the Book of Giants. There's quite a few books in there that talk about interesting things, and I'm going to see how I can gather these thoughts to make them.
It's a bit like reading Isaiah.
It's old school Testament. It's like Old Testament type language. But the book talks about angels who were basically had the ability to have eternal life. So these pretty much immortal beings who the Lord sent down to basically help the inhabitants of the earth and understand how to do this and this and this, and basically help technology do well, right? Mm-hmm. That was the purpose that Enoch talks about these men coming down, because they were incredible beings. And when they came here, they fell to the beauty of the women.
And all men.
Instantaneously. They fell.
They got one weakness, guys.
They fell to women. And what happened with them is they defiled themselves with women, and they created children with women. Now think about this concept here really quick. The reason I'm going to bring this up, intermingling seed from one person with another that for some reason is capable, it can create something, but is that creation correct? We have things in this world right now where we can take genetics from one species to another, and it does mix, such as, let's say, a horse and a donkey. When we mix those two, what do we get?
Mule.
Guess what's wrong with a mule?
I know this, but I can't remember.
A mule is sterile.
Sterile, thank you.
A mule cannot make another mule. So between the donkey and the horse, something
genetically, God cuts it off.
God cuts it off. Like, hey, I don't know. Theory. That's his theory. This is not good. Maybe it's like, hey, maybe we shouldn't do it. I'm not going to get into that. Nonetheless, it's possible. Tigers, lions, it's possible. There's quite a few things where you can mix sperm and egg from two separate species and create a life. Whether that life is right or wrong is not up to us. God will tell us. Nonetheless,
isn't it Jurassic Park that says just because you could doesn't mean
we should?
Doesn't mean you should. Yeah, basically, you never stopped to think if you should do it.
Okay, so let's talk what happens. This is why I love the Book of Enoch so much. We get a little snippet in Old Testament that there are giants, the Israelites. Okay, do you remember this? If you don't remember this, read the books. They're great books. Old Testament, New Testament, great books. The Israelites go to the land of Canaan, and when they go to the land of Canaan, they find that the Canaanites are gigantic. So gigantic that the Israelites themselves say they feel like grasshoppers comparative to the Canaanites. I don't think they're speaking figuratively. The Israelites say they are as if they are grasshoppers to these men. Now, in comparison to me, 5'9" on a good day, a grasshopper is not even half of my finger. They're not speaking figuratively. That is the size comparison of these men to the Israelites. That's huge.
Yeah.
Where do we get that? That's where the book of Enoch comes in. This is crazy. The offspring of these watchers, these incredible beings who live somewhere not of earth. So earth genetics and gravity and whatever else we have here that binds us to this earth, the oxygen levels. These seeds were able to mix, and what happened to them is giants were created. And these giants had insatiable appetites where it talks about how they defiled even men because they were so hungry they started eating men. Isn't it interesting that we don't get this from Old Testament per se, but we do get it from Book of Enoch? This is what we get from Old Testament. So Enoch,
and what's interesting is if you look at Genesis, you get like you said, you get Enoch walked with God, right? And you have,
and then we hear about giants.
Yes, but you have a flood.
That's what I was going to get into right here. This is what I'm going to get into.
So interesting.
This is what we get from Old Testament. What we get from Old Testament is the Lord's unhappy with the state of the earth. We talk about how there were sons of Enoch that are talked about, that were created. Sons of Enoch. Look at ancient history now. Have we heard of Anunnaki, who were giants? The sons of Enoch. It's been translated multiple times that Enoch to Anu and Anunnaki are very similar, which translates from the sons of
Enoch.
One of these watchers, right? Are gigantic people. And the Lord is unhappy with that. And then he has things that which he calls Nephilim, which most people reference Nephilim as pure giants. I think it's much deeper than that from my studies. Nephilim, which God talks about, is any breeding from one seed to another that is impure. And because that is impure, it has created an offbreed of something that was never intended to be created. It worked because we live in science, but it wasn't intended, and that is Nephilim. Have you looked at Egypt, Scientology, Egyptian past and history? We see creatures that are massive standing next to men with wolf heads or
eagles or cats
or bird, but hybrids. Mm-hmm. We see pictures. Is it figurative, or have they seen these creatures? It's up to you to decide.
We don't know.
I think they existed because they were doing things.
And then it's really interesting. This is a little off topic, just a touch.
We got to stay on.
I know. I'm staying on. I'm staying on Egypt. If you look even just very recently at the things that they have found in Egypt, they're finding that these pyramids go down thousands of feet into the earth. They're finding these tunnels, these elaborate creations of civilization underneath by thousands of feet underneath the surface of the pyramids. And I actually brought something up today because they said that there's these like pillars up underneath that are underneath the pyramids. And I brought up to Jake, I said, wouldn't it be interesting to think that the pyramids were actually not on the ground? Like, wouldn't it be interesting to think that these civilizations went down much deeper and these pyramids were almost like a tower?
Perhaps taller.
And people were living amongst the underneath but there wasn't earth there. But then we've got changes in earth, we've got changes in the flood, we've got all these different things that change the geography of the earth. It's very interesting to think about.
It is interesting.
There's things that we think we know that we might not.
So if you read the book of Enoch deeper, each one of these angels that had come down, one taught about war, one taught about fertility, one taught about all of these different things. Mm-hmm. And they became like gods to these people. Egyptian gods, possibly, who they worship one for this, one for this, one for this. Mm-hmm. And then they have pictures of them, which are not in the image of we are, right? Anyway, unique system. So what we get back from the Old Testament, which you talked about, we get Israelites, land of Canaan, giants, massive people. In fact, it references in the scriptures that some of these giants measured 3,000 ells. That's either a typo or these people are insane. An L typically was measured from here to here. So on average, an L is referenced about 18 inches. If that's the case, 3,000 L's, we're talking over 4,000-foot giants.
Then people would be grasshoppers next to them, wouldn't they?
or lesser. But that's why insatiable appetites couldn't feed their hunger. God wasn't happy with the state of the world. And so what happened? Floods. Now genealogy, do you know who Noah is? Do you know who's descendant? Okay, so Noah is the great-grandson of Enoch himself. Mm-hmm. Enoch, all right? So we have Enoch, we have Methuselah, Jared, I can't remember the next one, and then Noah. I'll have to look that up, Noah's dad. But anyway, Enoch is the great-grandfather of Noah. So Enoch was here, he left. Enoch talks about how in his days, these watchers came down, these angels, these glorified men, intermingled their seed with the people of this earth. Now, again, this is what I was getting to. Because of our science here, these genetics worked, but when they were bred, maybe the oxygen level was different that allowed these people to grow insane heights. We're not talking Goliath, David and Goliath size.
Right. Well,
we're talking insane size.
They do talk about the way that oxygen and things were on the earth at the time. That is the reason for the longer lifespan of these people that lived for 900 years, 600 years, and then after the flood, when the levels changed after the flood,
pre-diluvian and then antediluvian,
all of a sudden people weren't living like that anymore. Then you're maxing out at 165 years, and then less, and then less, and then less. It's very
maybe because the Lord didn't want people to intermingle and create more Nephilim.
Or maybe because he realized that he gave a little too much power. Like you give an inch, they take a mile, right? So
it's just interesting though the capabilities of this world that we don't talk about, and obviously some people are going to think this is just a big fairy tale. Go read the books.
That's fine
for yourself. But then we have what happened, the flood, right? Mm-hmm. To get rid of these things. Mm-hmm. Now it's interesting to me. Can you imagine that like your great grandpa's Enoch? And Noah was old, so they lived together. Mm-hmm. You know, they lived in the same time. It's not like our generations now where great grandpa, you may or may not meet him. No, they lived together. Methuselah, his son, which is the oldest man that had ever lived, was left on earth to be with these people. Interesting times. Well, when you jump to the book of Enoch, though, now it fills in the gaps. Because it's like, well, why did the Lord flood the earth? Well, the book of Enoch gives some clarity. Well, we did because there were these things there that were never intended to be made.
Scripture says there was evil on the earth, and that's basically what happened, right? But there's not a whole bunch of explanation beyond the world was not good, so we flooded it, and then he promised to never do it again because those watchers were no longer allowed upon the
other crazy thing with Enoch. Enoch talks about how he was carried away in visions, and he saw the ends of their world, which I don't know how you can see the ends if it's a certain shape.
Hey,
I'm just kidding.
A different day.
Anyway, he sees the ends of the earth.
You're such a sass.
And Enoch was taken and saw all these things, and Enoch was shown portals. This is crazy. This is an interesting book. Maybe you should read it. Enoch was shown portals on how these things can travel from this earth to others through these portals. Mm-hmm. When I was a kid, I would watch movies. All of this was impossible. None of these things were real. Portals, stargates, aliens. I think...
Unless you start researching Nikola Tesla, then you...
I think that these movies have all been made at this point so that one day they can go, we've been trying to tell you. We've just been doing it in movies so that you wouldn't be...
We've been doing it subliminally so that we didn't have mass terror.
Yeah, and so I think all these things exist anymore. The more that I've read and studied, there is something. So after I've studied these things, I go out and I watch the stars on a near daily basis.
I will tell you, after watching the stars with Jake, if you go out there, give it 3 or 4 nights in a row, you will see things you cannot explain.
Unexplainable things. And it talks about how
nobody looks up.
Before the Lord comes back, there will be multiple signs in the heavens. Now, if you look at writings of Abraham and ancient people, Moses, right? Mm-hmm. When they referenced heavens, they weren't referencing where God dwelt himself per se. Anything to these ancient language, when they mentioned the word heavens, it was referenced of things above what they could see. So when they said that there will be multiple signs in heavens, or the heavens will be wild, basically, there you'll see tons of signs, they're referencing things in the skies that you will see in the last days. Unexplainable things. One other thing that's talked about in Revelation, how there will be a space of a half an hour where there will be silence in heaven. Do you know what that means?
You've told me before.
That means there were no women in heaven because it was silent for the space of half an hour.
You're so ridiculous.
Guess who told me that one the other day?
What?
Kenny. It was fantastic. He's
Kenny,
like, you know how there weren't women
in
heaven, Jake? Because there was a space of half an hour where there was silence. That was hilarious to me. It was just funny as can be to me.
So we're talkers. And yet I don't know who's talking right now more.
All right. Anyway, that was a joke, but side effect. I just had to throw that in because Kenny said it and I thought it was hilarious. But it is a sign. There will be a space. We'll see some silence. But I've gone and I've watched to see interesting things that I have never explained, couldn't be explained. And that's where, do we paraphrase what transcript is in here real quick, or do we read some of it?
I think we could read some of it, but you could paraphrase too.
There's a podcast, sorry.
It's not a podcast, it was a radio.
There's a radio
broadcast
show.
type.
There's a radio show that people would talk about science and other things of the world on a regular basis. And during this radio show, there was a segment where somebody could call in and talk. And at one point on this radio show, somebody called in and talked and said, "My name is General Jeremiah, and I am on."
He says, "I'm calling from a spacecraft rotating around this planet right now.
The Starship Alliance.
I am the commanding officer of a spacecraft called the Alliance, which is part of the United Galactic Federation. We're monitoring your planet."
Which recently, government just came out and recognized there is a galactic federation.
Says, "We're monitoring your planet, and this is not a joke. Your listeners probably think this is a joke, but it is not. We want you to know that we have often listened to your show. We wanted to let Jim know that he is one of the scientists we plan to contact soon about projects we are working on."
This radio transcription, it blew my mind the first time I heard it. I was like, there's no way that this is real, or is it real? The more I've looked into it, I think it's real.
And the interesting thing is that whether or not you believe that's real or not, it's not going to do anything to you. It's not going to change too much for you. And to reference Jake's brain always, it's kind of like the shape of the earth. It really doesn't change much for you, whether you believe
I don't know what the shape of the
way or
earth
the
is.
other
I
is.
do fully believe that the calculations we have been taught are wrong.
But anyway, that's for a different podcast. But
Yeah,
I'm just saying that it doesn't change your faith. It doesn't change the things that you necessarily believe or the doctrines that you hold dear. It's just interesting to think about. It's just interesting to allow yourself to ponder. Are there people monitoring the earth? Do we have a space station? Did we go to the moon? Do we have what is living in our solar system? When you go outside at night and you look, like I was out there with Jenna and Shalise, my best friends. We were at a haunted forest. I didn't even tell you this. I forgot about it. We're sitting in this haunted forest between in line between the hay bales. I'm just kind of like looking up because there's nowhere else to look, and just dead over us. Something's moving very fast. No lights. Big. I could see it because there was a reflection from the corn maze off of it. And I was like, Jenna, Shalise, look. And they looked and they're like, what was that? Not a plane, not a drone. It wasn't shaped like anything that I've ever seen. Didn't make sound. There was not, like, it was just there. And then all of a sudden bleeped out and it was close. And I was like,
people are going to think
I'm
we're freaking
glad
nuts.
you guys saw that because I also saw that.
One thing I wanted to say.
People don't look up though. That's
nobody
the thing.
looks up. We
Nobody
live on this
up.
plane. This is the plane we live on.
We have blinders. We're like horses on a race.
Do this, you will see unexplainable things. If anytime I'm outside, people are like, Jake, what are you doing? I'm just staring.
Looking. In the summer, he goes and lays down on the front porch, and people probably drive past our house and wonder why Jake if he's in trouble, if that's why he's out on the front porch laying down on a pillow.
This is what I wanted to say, though, on people's mindset. I'm going to bring up, for example, this teacher that we talked about earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Zero, very closed-minded. There's no extra thinking. This is what I've been taught. This is the way it is. There is no other option. I think that is a very ignorant way of thinking. Mm-hmm. Isn't it much better? Let's talk science, religion, who cares what? Wouldn't it be better if somebody came up to you and said, what if this is a possibility? Instead of being like, well, that's stupid, because that's literally what this teacher said. Real quick,
yeah.
That's stupid. Or would it be better to go, you really believe that? I do. Tell me why you believe that. Let me understand. Let me understand the full picture of it. Then I can make a judgment call. Is that on a more humble and a more way we probably should think?
Well, there's all the ways that the ancient astronomers and scientists thought, right? They all thought that this was the way the earth worked, and this was the way the sun worked, and this was the way the moon worked. And then a little more learning, a little more technology, a little more studying. Oh, actually, it's not how it works. It actually works this way. And so, but people accepted it. maybe over generations, right? Maybe like at the first they're like, well, this is the way I've learned it. This is what I know. That's what we're conditioned to. We don't like change.
Personal experience real quick. And what makes me say this is how I hope everybody can learn how to think. And then we'll close it up. I was listening to a book from a guy, Michael Rush, who mentioned some of these things in the beginning. And at first I was like, this is crazy. And then I realized that's not the best way that's not a nice way to think. Like you're crazy, you're stupid. Because this is a highly intelligent guy. This is not a stupid person. This is a highly intelligent guy. So instead of me going, disregard it, I'm not going to listen anymore. Let me understand why this person writes this and thinks what it is. And then I will make a judgment call. One other experience that I want to say that opened my mind to the way I hope people can act. My friend about 3.5 years ago, 3 years ago, was at my house and we mentioned something. He goes, well, the earth is flat. And I'm like, that's funny. And he goes, no, I 100% do believe that. I'm like, that's crazy. And all of my friends around the table went, dude, you're so stupid. That's not kind. Mm-hmm. And this kid who told me this, my friend, is a very intelligent person. Not somebody who has shown that he has had slow schooling and he's a smart man. So I went and I said, you really actually believe that? He says, I do. I said, I want to understand why you think that. I will not belittle you because that is rude, number one. And you're an intelligent person. Let me understand why you think that. Then I will make a judgment call. 2.5 years, this guy showed me
sent Jake
thing after thing on why he believes that. And I had to take from, I'm going to use this analogy that I use with everybody. If this is a globe earth, this is a flat earth, there is a wall in between that you cannot cross. They do not mix very well. Mm-mm. And then there's a starting point right here where the wall ends.
It's actually not like science and religion. You can't mix them.
Yeah. There's a wall right here, and the wall ends, there's a starting point. So from ground zero, if you take ground zero and you match all the points to the globe earth, it makes perfect sense. You're right. It must be a globe. But if you go back down to ground zero and understand how somebody can actually think that the world is flat right here, guess what?
It also makes sense.
It also makes perfect sense. Like, wow. Then and only then do you have the ability to make a judgment call of, is it round? Is it flat? You cannot, and if you only go halfway, there's still a wall. You can't jump over. If you go here, you can't jump over. You have to go to ground zero.
I also think
I bring that up in this manner. Now I finally have understood what he believes, what we've been taught our entire life. And now I can make a judgment call because I understand from step 1 to 2 to 3 all the way to the end. You can't half cut it. That's how I hope people think, whether it's religion. You come up to somebody with something. Well, that's stupid. You don't believe, we don't believe that. Well, maybe what if it's a possibility? If it's a possibility, it's incredible. Have an open mind. The Spirit will teach you what is true. Anyway. Mm-hmm.
I think it's very interesting to think about how we have spent our entire years of humanity, of civilization, trying to learn all of these things, and then all of a sudden, in the probably in the last couple hundred years, there's just no. If this is what we've been told, this is it. This is the answer.
How many times have the government told us something,
right? And then come back 50 years later and tell us we lied.
JFK.
Yeah, but it's interesting to think about how we just take things face value, right? When we're taught something in schools about history, we're learning based off of the victors. We're learning our history based off of who won, not necessarily always the truth. You look at the things that we're living through right now, the history we're living through right now, right? You look at there's a lot of people out there who believe that 9/11 was an inside job. There's a lot of people who always believed that JFK was an inside job. And that's been proven now. So it's very interesting to think about how the person who is manipulating the history, who is writing the book, gets to decide how it's written.
The person in charge gets to write what people believe.
And then you look at the educational system, and we're teaching our children to just blindly believe these things. Like
I hate educational system.
They don't get to decide what their thoughts are, or what their opinions are, or what their belief system is, because they're taught this is it, and if you question it, you're stupid. In fact, that is almost word for word what our little niece was told. She said if your uncle believes this thing and tells you that and teaches you that, you're going to grow up to be stupid. And that is not okay. We do not teach children
Which I don't think
to
we
just
would be
believe what we say.
I don't think we'd be as successful as we have been and how big a prominent people we are in the community if we were stupid.
Yeah.
Last thing
Sorry, I got a little passionate there.
I love it. I was just going to say, we need to wrap it up in that minute. I don't remember what we were going to say, but as you can tell, there's a lot of things out there.
We got a lot of stuff in our brains.
that's in life. Go out there and
look at the stars.
I could show you, I don't know how many scriptures in the world tell you that go study it in your mind and understand it. Then come ask if it's true. Then go to the Lord and ask.
We've been asked to seek personal revelation.
James talks about if you seek things, you will know the truthfulness of things.
All things.
Yes, but if you ask with a sincere heart, with real intent, asking the Lord in faith, He will answer questions to you, no matter what it be. Do that. Follow us on the next podcast.
I'm sure we'll talk about it more.
And you can probably see why we called this channel The Crazy Life.